Okay, class, today we're going to be doing BBOA 2 and 3. We've talked about BBOA 1, and we know BBOA stands for the building blocks of algebra. And we know that there are four basic parts of BBOA. We have a model. We then translate that model into an expression. We then evaluate the expression using a t-chart, and with a t-chart, we graph it. So let's review BBOA 1, and then I'll talk about BBOA 2 and 3. Okay, and 2 and 3 is just two different assignments. Okay, so it's no big deal. So let's take a look at this model. Okay, this model, we can translate it to an expression. We know that the open longs represent our x's, so this would be 2x plus, and we know that one closed square represents -1. So we could write that as 2x plus -1 or 2x minus 1, either one, and they're both acceptable. Now we know this expression goes in our y spot. So we would evaluate this t-chart using that expression. Now over the last couple of days, we've looked at a way that we understand what these numbers mean in relation to this t-chart. And we know that this y-intercept, it is the y value when x is 0. So I can plug the -1 in right there. Now this 2, the slope, it tells us our pattern number. If the pattern on the left is 1, we know that the slope is the pattern on the right. Okay, so I've got -1, I need to increase by 2. So this would be +1, and then increase by 2 again, I get 3. Going backwards, I decrease by 2. So this would be -3 and -5. Now when you evaluate that expression in a t-chart, we create a set of coordinates. Okay, so our first coordinate is -2, -5. So from the origin, I'm going to go left 2, down 5, and put a dot. The next one is left 1, down 3, and then right or left none, down 1, and then right 1, up 1, and then right 2, up 3. And to finish out the graph, we connect the dots and put our arrows on the line. So that is what we did with BBOA 1. I gave you a model, you went to the expression, the t-chart, and the graph. Now here lately, we've learned how to go from a completed t-chart back to the expression. We know that to find the y-intercept value, it's just the y value when x is 0. And we know that this number right here, the slope, is our pattern number as long as the pattern on the left is 1. So with BBOA 2 and 3, what I'm going to give you is other things. I may give you an expression and have you fill out the other 3. I may give you a t-chart and have you give me the other 3. And the one that we haven't talked about yet is I may give you a graph and have you give me the other 3. So let's see if we can talk about these, and then I'm going to give you an assignment. So what if I give you the expression? Well, what can we do immediately? Well, we can easily create the t-chart. So I take my expression, I write it above my y, and then I notice my x values are increasing by 1. So I know then that my 2 will go in my y-intercept spot, which is the y value when x is 0. Now my pattern number says that I'm going to be decreasing by 3. So from this 2, I decrease by 3 to get -1, and then -4. And then to go backwards, I increase by 3 to get 5 and 8. And now I can easily put those on a graph. -2, +8. -1, +5. 0, 2, 1, -1, and 2, -4. And again, we play connect the dots. And then you have to build the model. So this says -3x. So that means I'm going to give me 3 longs, but then I'm going to shade them in. I'm going to close them up. And then 2 open squares. And there's the first part of BBOA 2, where I give you the expression, you give me the other 3. Now what if I give you the t-chart? Well, the first thing you could do is graph it. That would be the easiest thing to do. So -2, -5, -1, -1, 0, 3, 1, 7, Now 2, 11, oh my goodness, that would be up here. Well, if you have a point that goes outside the graph, just don't graph it, because you really don't know where 11 would be up there. So you just don't graph that one, and that's perfectly fine. Okay, so now I need to go back to the expression. Now I know my expressions are going to be in the form of blank x plus blank. Okay, so we first find our slope. That's the best. Okay, and we know slope is found by delta y divided by delta x. So delta y here is 4. The change in the y value. The change in the x value is 1. So 4 divided by 1 is 4. And then what is our y value when x is 0? 3. So the expression is 4x plus 3. And then, of course, you draw the model. Simple as that. Okay? Now, what if I give you the graph? Now, this is the one that we haven't talked about yet. So this is what we need to understand. Okay, so if we have a graph, the first thing we need to remember how to read a graph. Okay, and we read a graph from left to right, the same way we read a book. So imagine you have a vertical line drawn down the middle of your graph or down the side of your graph. As I move that line across, the first one that it hits is the first point that you write. Okay, so that point right there is the first one that you write inside your T-chart. So in this one we've got -2, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we've got -7. Okay, then the line goes across a little bit further. Okay, and we have -1 now. So -1, and then 1, 2, 3, -4. And then the next one, which would be this point. So as we move that line across, as they hit those points, that's the ones that we write. Because in your BBOA 2 and 3, okay, you're not going to have any x values there, so you will need to fill them in. So we read a graph from left to right, from left to right. So our 0 point is 0, -1, and then 1, 2, and then 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so now we go from our T-chart. Now that we've created our points or got our points off our graph, we now write the expression of blank x plus blank. Okay, so our pattern on the right is increasing by 3. Our pattern on the left is increasing by 1. 3 divided by 1 is 3. What is my y value when x is 0? -1. And now you create your model. Just like that. And that's what you're going to do on this assignment today, is I'm going to give you one that has a model, and you have to find the rest. Okay? If you don't have a set of x values, okay, then you're using -2, -1, 0, 1, and 2. Okay, those are the x values that you're going to use. Okay, then I'm going to give you, well, if we go back to that one, I gave you the model, and then in this one I gave you a graph. So you need to go from the graph over to the T-chart, and then to the expression, and then to the model. And then on the next one, I gave you an expression. You give me the 3. And again, if I don't give you the x values, -2, -1, 0, 1, and 2. And then on this one, I gave you a set of coordinates. Okay? So and then you graph those. On the BBOA 3, it's the same exact thing. It's just 2 different assignments that I put together. I did the same thing. I gave you a model. I gave you a graph. Okay? I gave you an expression, and I gave you a T-chart. And then on this one, though, I also gave you a bonus. Let's see if you can do the bonus. Now, this one's got an x squared, so that's a little bit different. So let's see if you can, 1, create for me the T-chart and create for me the graph. You won't understand how to do the model, but I do want you to try to create the T-chart and the graph of that bonus. Just do it on a separate sheet of paper.